All right, so I'm Alexander Casala. I'm a senior editor at Hornet, and today we're talking with Nic. Last name?
Holas, Nic Holas.
Nic Holas. And what do you do in Australia?
I'm an HIV and queer activist.
In Sydney?
Melbourne these days.
In Melbourne. Awesome.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the fight for marriage equality in Australia. So give people who are watching this video maybe some of the very simple background regarding what's going on in Australia.
Totally. Well, for those of you who know nothing about the issue, the fight for same-sex marriage in Australia has been going on for 13 years, since 2004, when a Conservative government changed the wording of the law to say that marriage was specifically between a man and a woman. And this was in reaction to the fight for same-sex marriage that was happening in Canada and Europe. And so instead of progressing the law, they actually made it tougher. And that was the start of the modern movement for marriage equality in Australia. And it has been dragging on for 13 long years. And now we're at the really pointy, really tricky end, where after all of that time, it looks like we might possibly maybe get it over the line through I kid you not, a survey in the mail that our government is sending out to people to decide whether or not we should have marriage equality.
Right. So this survey is happening, but it seems to me like you guys don't want the survey. Like people who are pro-marriage equality don't want the survey because you're nervous that the survey could come back against it, right?
Oh, totally. So this whole survey has come about because the Conservative government that's in power right now, our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, when he took the leadership, when he became the Prime Minister, he made a deal with the far-right members of his party that he wouldn't put marriage equality through unless it went to a national vote to everyone. And originally, this was something called a plebiscite, where people were going to have to come out of their houses and go to like a voting booth, like you would on voting day when you vote for someone. You'd have to go out and put your vote in the box on whether or not we should have same-sex marriage. The crazy thing about that is that we don't need to do that. It's not in our constitution. You could just put it through Parliament and they could vote on it and it could happen. But the far right are trying to stop this happening. So they're coming up with all these crazy ways. And originally it was this plebiscite. Now, the LGBTIQ community said, we don't want the plebiscite. We think it's expensive and it's going to be really harmful. You know, it's going to create this whole public debate. And not everyone needs to have a yes or no say. That's why we elect people. So we knocked the plebiscite down. And now the government has sneakily come up with this postal way of doing the plebiscite. And what that's happened is forced us to have a big public debate on it. And there's this really ugly no campaign running with lots of misinformation and lies.
So you guys, the activists in the LGBTQ community, were trying to get the survey to not go through, but it is happening.
Yeah, because you can do the postal survey without it needing to be approved by the Parliament. So this is how they're being really sneaky around it. If you wanted to come out and do a plebiscite where everyone turned up and put their vote in their box and said yes or no, it would have to be approved by the Parliament. It's money that has to be approved to be spent. But the postal survey, they can just do without asking anyone's permission to do it, without getting approved. Like passing a bill, it would need to pass a bill in Parliament for the plebiscite. Sorry, I missed that. Now it's happening. Yeah, so we tried really hard. We even took it to the High Court, which is like our version of the Supreme Court, to try and get them to stop it. But it got voted down and now it's happening. And the mail is being sent out this week. And I got to tell you, I'm old and gay enough to remember the only good gay stuff in the mail was the International Mail Catalogue. So we're all really nervous about this. And I've got to say, we've seen some awful stuff already in the No campaign. We've seen people spreading lies that, a vote for same-sex marriage is a vote for polyamory, for child abuse. It's terrible for rainbow families. We don't deserve gay marriage because gay men have higher rates of HIV and AIDS. Like, they're pulling out all the stops.
So how can people who aren't in Australia help? Is there a way they can help?
Well, they can learn more about it and they can share all the stuff they're seeing online about the Yes campaign. Apart from that, it's really about convincing Australians. So if anyone online knows any Australian people, they can try and convince them to say yes. And they can, of course, share messages of solidarity and support. And I think that's really one of the most important things people can do, because young people are seeing all of this right now and they're thinking, this is what the world thinks of us. This is what my country thinks of me. And I remember being, 12 or 13 and realizing that I was queer and seeing all this stuff around HIV and AIDS when I was a teenager in the 90s. And it was a really sad and scary time. And it had a big impact on me and my identity as a queer person. And I think now about 12-year-old kids seeing the same sort of stuff, and what an awful message they must be sending to them. So we definitely could use some solidarity here in Australia.
Yeah, well, so we should definitely do another video once this all happens, so you can update us on what's going on.
Totally. That sounds great. Love to.
And well, thanks so much for talking with us. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, that's pretty much everything. But yeah, I'd love to check back in and keep giving some updates, because the mail goes out this week, and then in a couple of weeks, the campaigns will be ramping up, and then everyone will be voting. So I could maybe do another update halfway through and then one at the end.
I love it. Alrighty.
Oh, love to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So we'll talk then.
Awesome. Bye, hon.
Bye.